It is going to happen. We are going to hire a woman who's going to direct a Star Wars movie. I have no doubt. On the other hand, I want to make sure that we put somebody in that position who's set up for success. Mm-hmm. It's not just a token job to look out and try to find a woman that we could put into a position of directing Star Wars.
I'm not sure if all of you know this, but I'm not a trained filmmaker. So I never went to film school. I went to Smith College and did my undergraduate and studied economics and political science like a good Pakistani girl.
You serious?
Hey everybody, the Acolyte is cancelled. I think I speak for all Star Wars fans when I say, yes!
Yes! Yes!
Yes!
Yes!
Yes!
Yes!
Okay, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you know I've been very critical of the Disney Star Wars era. Like most people, and for good reason. Ever since George Lucas signed over the ownership of Star Wars to Disney, it's been a complete and utter disaster. And the main reason for that is that Disney, or George Lucas, I think it was George Lucas actually agreed on this, that they put Kathleen Kennedy as head of Lucasfilm. And for the most part, it's been a disaster. Now, it's a very trendy thing to do to bash Disney Star Wars. Because, oh god, Disney Star Wars is awful, the movies are terrible, everything's been terrible. And that's not entirely true. Now, while Kathleen Kennedy is an idiot, it's important to remember, and I did actually make a video about this about a year ago, there have been good things about Disney Star Wars. Now, the Star Wars sequel trilogy was a disaster, but Rogue One was good. Solo was good. Yes, I enjoyed Solo. I thought it was a good space adventure. And on the Disney Plus TV show front, I enjoyed the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. The Book of Boba Fett was crap. Obi-Wan Kenobi was crap. I think I watched half of Ahsoka, but Andor was good. Andor was really good. The funny thing about that show is it's got the lowest viewing numbers of all the Star Wars Disney Plus shows. And I can understand that because it was very adult orientated. Seriously, if you haven't watched Andor, watch it. It's a slow burn, but it's very, very, very good. And that brings us to the Acolyte. So since this project was announced 3 or 4 years ago, we knew this was going to be a disaster. Every single interview that Leslie Headland gave, it was going to focus on women. Again, no problem with that, but let's face it, Star Wars is a primarily male brand. It's for men and boys. And it's a franchise that women happen to like. They didn't want it changed. And that's the problem with Star Wars as a whole these days. They have all these women in charge. You have Kathleen Kennedy. She said in an interview that she didn't really care about Star Wars. But besides that, this Leslie Headland one was in charge, and it was clear that this movie had only had an agenda behind it. It was going to be diverse and show women in power, whatever. And this wouldn't matter if the show was good. It was going to focus on the Sith, which is a good idea. I think a Star Wars story centered on the Sith would be interesting. It's never been done before. And I have to say, I watched the first episode and I gave up on it. And like I said, I could have covered the show, all 8 episodes, and I would have gotten more views. But I would have lost the will to live. This is a hobby for me. I'm not getting paid for it. And most of the footage I've seen of the Acolyte has been watching other YouTubers like Nerdrotic or Critical Drinker or Robot Head. They're fantastic channels, by the way. Just go follow them. And it seems like I didn't miss much. The good news is that the Acolyte has been cancelled, and this makes me question, is this a sign of change for Lucasfilm, or is this just a fluke? Because to talk about Marvel for a second, Marvel have been in the same boat as Star Wars for the last couple of years. It's just been woke disaster after agenda-driven politics being pushed into every single movie and TV show that they've done. But there have been signs recently that Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel, has been trying to right the ship. Now, they'll never say this publicly, but actions speak louder than words, and there's every indication that Marvel are trying to change. From Captain America Brave New World being reshot entirely at great expense to be made a better movie. It might turn out to be a disaster, who knows, but the fact is they're trying. Not only that, but Daredevil Born Again, a TV series which is bringing back Charlie Cox's Daredevil, they basically made 8 episodes and they've scrapped them all. It seems that Kevin Feige looked at them and said, it's not working. So again, at great expense, they've scrapped them all and they're starting again. And they had a trailer recently for the new version of Born Again, and it looks pretty good. It looks like it's a return to the gritty style of the original Daredevil Netflix series. So all the indications are that Marvel are trying to change. from Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the Avengers movies, to getting the Russo brothers to direct those movies. But despite all this, it seems that Star Wars is just getting worse. It seems that Kathleen Kennedy is doubling down on all the nonsense and just pushing her agenda into all these shows. I mean, you have The Acolyte, most importantly, the REY movie. Now, for those of you who don't know, they're bringing back the character of Rey, the most divisive character, one of the most divisive characters in modern Star Wars, to be in her own movie. That's supposed to come out in 2026, I believe. To star Daisy Ridley, the original star of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And this sounds like a recipe for disaster, not because they're bringing back the most divisive character from the sequel trilogy, which, let's face it, most fans would prefer be decanonized and just written off completely. And they made a really big point about this when they announced this movie, that Charmin Obaid-Chinoy is directing this, a woman. And she's not just a woman, she's an activist, and she's a proud activist. There are interviews where she says that there's lots of activism in her work.
My body of work over the last 20 years has been guided by my activism, and every single piece of work that I've ever created has a piece of activism in it. It could be very overt or it could be covert, but it is there.
That's one thing, but the other thing is she has no experience making a movie. She has never made a big budget movie. The only qualifications that she has to make this movie is the fact that she's made some documentaries, and she made 2 episodes of Miss Marvel, a Marvel show that nobody watched. And now she's been given the keys to Star Wars. Not just a Star Wars TV show, but a Star Wars movie. The movie that's supposed to save the franchise. So you've got the most divisive character of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and you've got a female director who says that, oh yeah, by the way, she says that it's time for women to take charge and lead Star Wars into the future. Where has she been for the last 10 years? So she has no experience, she has no special effects experience, she's never made a big budget science fiction movie. What exactly are her qualifications? I'm not a Hollywood producer, but if I was, and if I was hiring someone to make a Star Wars movie, the first thing that would come to my mind regarding qualifications would be, has this person, whether it's a male or female, let's face it, I wouldn't mind if it's a female director if she had experience. There are female directors who have made good Star Wars content, like Bryce Dallas Howard, the daughter of Ron Howard. She's made some very good episodes of The Mandalorian. But this Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, she has no experience making a movie. Again, I'm not a Hollywood producer, but if I was hiring someone to make a Star Wars movie, whether they were male or female, the first qualifications I would think that they need to have is A, do they have talent? Do they have skill? Have they made a big budget movie before? Have they experience with special effects? But most importantly, are they passionate about the material? And nothing I've seen about Charmin Obaid-Chinoy says to me that they're interested in Star Wars or have ever been interested in Star Wars. It seems that she's just there to push an agenda. So no wonder Kathleen Kennedy hired her.
I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
Now, just to talk about Daisy Ridley for a moment, I dislike the character of Rey in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but not the actress Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley is a good actress and apparently a very nice person. She comes across very well in interviews, especially compared to the star of The Acolyte, Amanda Stenberg, who can't take criticism whatsoever. Her reaction to any criticism of her show is that she calls them a racist or a bigot or a sexist or whatever. And she made a diss track where she talked about how, oh, you think my show is woke. She basically hates Star Wars fans, and she said Star Wars fans are gay, and she said Star Wars fans are always gay. And that was just something in a long line of disastrous interviews given for this show. Just look at any clips of any of the actors promoting this show. It's just an embarrassment.
How do you feel?
Am I gay? Yes.
Well, no, I know you are gay, but I'm asking, are you excited about putting this, this is going to be a talking point.
Is it going to be a talking point?
I'm sure some.
Because nerds are gay.
Well, some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But
Yeah.
in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay.
So, again, Daisy Ridley is a nice person, got nothing against her. Compared to what the media are saying about Star Wars fans, that they're racist, they're sexist, and they're bigoted, there was one interview that she gave where she defended Star Wars fans. There was this interviewer that was asking her a loaded question, and she stood up for Star Wars fans.
Because there are some of the, I'd say, extreme Star Wars fans who have made this a conversation on the internet about how they don't want a female director. What is your take on that?
I think my take is things get blown out of proportion, and the interactions I've ever had with people have been nothing but wonderful and supportive. And honestly, the day we announced that I was coming back at Celebration last year, you cannot imagine the joy and goodwill in that room.
Now, unfortunately, it's come out recently that Daisy Ridley has a condition called Graves' disease. Now, I don't know much about this, but it apparently it affects her ability to work out and stay healthy. And that's unfortunate. I feel very sorry for her. But this is to bring me back to my original point. Is the REY movie going to get cancelled? I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Because again, like Marvel, there are signs that Disney are trying to make changes. Rian Johnson, the director of The Last Jedi, was announced as getting his own trilogy. It still hasn't happened. And it's never been officially cancelled. So I'm very surprised that this early, only about a month or two after The Acolyte ended, that they said that Disney had basically come out and said, it's cancelled, it's gone. The fact that they came out with this and gave the fans this win to the racists and bigots and sexists, and the fact that they did that makes me wonder, are changes happening? Because this must have been a huge failure for Kathleen Kennedy, and especially Leslie Headland. And the rumour is at the time of this recording that she's out. And yeah, there have been loads of videos over the last couple of years like, is Kathleen Kennedy fired? Or Kathleen Kennedy rumoured to be fired. These videos pop up once or twice a year and they're all bogus. Until we get an official confirmation, Kathleen Kennedy is staying where she is. Unfortunately. But I do get the impression, are there people behind the scenes, the higher ups at Disney, ordering Kathleen Kennedy, no, you have to make changes now. You have to make good Star Wars content because we're just losing money. The last couple of TV shows flopped. She has had some successes. The Star Wars sequel trilogy technically were billion-dollar movies, but they're very divisive. And Star Wars is a very bad place now. The Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel experience was a flop. There's a new game coming out called Outlaws, which looks like it's going to flop. Merchandise isn't selling. I think Disney are smart enough now that they really do have to make good Star Wars content. Surely there's someone at a brain at Disney who has said, look, we need to fix this. We spend so much money on getting this franchise. We need to win the fans back. And attacking them online or making all this activist propaganda in our TV shows and movies is not going to work. So it's a bit like steering a ship around. It's going to take time. But my impression is that changes are happening, that things are going to get better. As to whether that's going to be successful, I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would guess that the REY movie is going to be cancelled. Now, at the time of this recording, filming is supposed to begin on the REY movie in about a month or two, but movies have been cancelled before. Just look at the Batgirl movie. Warner Brothers spent $100 million on that movie. It was edited. They looked at a rough cut and said, nope, cut it. They cancelled it, destroyed the footage, and counted it as a tax write-off. It would not surprise me in the least if the REY movie gets cancelled. I hope it gets cancelled. I do hope that Daisy Ridley gets paid. It might be cheaper for them to pay those involved and cancel the movie because I presume that contracts have been signed, and if they just cancel the movie outright, they would still have to pay her. And again, I hope she does get paid, and I hope she gets paid well because, again, I've got nothing against Daisy Ridley. She's a nice person apparently, and she's a good actress. If I was her manager or her agent, I would advise her to go look for other more worthwhile projects. So to sum up, my guess would be that the REY movie will probably get cancelled. I could be wrong, realistically speaking, because they're so close to filming. Everything that we've seen over the last couple of weeks shows that there is change coming. Now, the biggest change that would make every Star Wars fan celebrate would be Kathleen Kennedy's firing. I don't think they're going to do that. That would be like an admission of guilt on their part. They're never going to say that they made mistakes, but action speaks louder than words. I think they are going to start trying to make good Star Wars content, good Star Wars movies, good Star Wars TV shows. Cancelling The Acolyte was a great first step. They need to get filmmakers and writers who are not just talented, but they need filmmakers and writers who are passionate about Star Wars. So anyway, what do you think? Do you think the REY movie is going to get cancelled? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Share this video out there, click bell for notifications, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.